You can clap. It's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Right. So I'm going to try and show as many demos as I can because those are the most exciting pieces, I think, of Wave. So I'm David Bytow. I work on Google Wave, and I work on what I consider to be one of the most critical parts of Google Wave success, which are the APIs. So let's talk about what we're going to cover. First thing I'm going to talk about is the Google Wave Sandbox. So essentially, the Google Wave Sandbox is the environment which developers such as yourselves will, create your robots, create gadgets, create extensions, and also play with Google Wave. So at a later date, we're going to be opening that up. We're also going to be talking about embedding waves in other sites. So this is really important because you can actually take our client or pieces of our client, such as waves and so on, and embed them in your sites for other users. So then we're going to be talking about open social gadgets and how to embed those in Wave. And that's also very important as well. I'm going to open up my water. Then we're going to talk about robotic participants. Now, that may not make much sense right now, or maybe it does because you just saw the demo, but hopefully it will later. And finally, one of the most probably crucial parts about extensions is how to distribute them to your users and share them with others. So let's talk about the Wave Sandbox. So as I mentioned, developer accounts will be given out to everyone in this room and everyone at the conference over time as we can sustain the load and hand them out. Until then, you're free to check out our documentation. We have APIs. We have both Java and Python APIs for our robots. And all that information is already up on code.google.com. And finally, because the sandbox is constantly being updated with new features, we're modifying stuff, we're keeping everyone up to date on our blog, which is googlewavedev.blogspot.com. Again, all this information will be emailed out to you. And that's also what these other bullet points say. So just a couple notes. I just want to mention that Google Wave is still in preview form. What that means is we still have bugs. We're still fixing them. We're still rolling out new content and new features. We do plan to, later this year, release Google Wave to the public. And at that point, you guys will have a leg up in terms of already being familiar with the product, having created extensions that you can then share at that point. And finally, the APIs are still in a very early, rough form, and they're still subject to change. But again, we're going to keep everyone updated on the blogs and so on. So let's talk about building things in Wave. Well, actually, first thing we're going to do is take a step back and just talk about the anatomy of a wave. So you saw in the demo that we have participants, wavelets, pieces of conversation, and so on. So here's how it breaks down. So you notice that we have waves. And a wave you can think of as a container that contains wavelets. A wave can contain multiple wavelets, and each wavelet can contain multiple blips. And a blip is essentially a piece of conversation or data. So participants are on the wavelets, and that's what they're able to see. What I mean is participants on the wavelet are able to see the blips, modify them, add them, edit them, so on and so forth. This is really important. So let me switch to a quick demo of this, and hopefully Dan can help me out. And Adam is not here, so it's just going to be the two of us. So I'm going to start a wave, and I'm going to say, hey guys, let's get some pizza. This is a very common wave that I send out, actually, which is pretty interesting. So I'm going to add Dan, then I'm going to add Adam. So this is a wave that Dan can see right now. But sometimes, what I want to do is actually send a private message within the context of this message to Adam. So what I'm going to do is add a new wavelet that just has Adam as a participant, and Dan will not be able to see. So you saw this in the demo, but this is how it breaks down. So just add a private reply, add Adam, say, hey, I bet Dan is going to want Chinese. So this is just a message that only Adam can read, and it's within the context of the exact message. Of course, Dan actually just wants Mexican food, as you can tell. Thanks, Dan. So you can see that participants or multiple wavelets in a single wave actually come in pretty handy. So I also want to talk about data storage real quick. Data is really stored over time with playback, again, as you saw in the demo. What this means is you can actually bidirectionally move forward and backward in time and view any data that had changed in the wave. You can also randomly access any frame at any given time. So I'm just going to play this back. So let's go to playback. We can see I started a wave. I added the participants. I created an empty blip. I created the new reply, and so on. So I can just kind of come back and forth, view the wave. I can also randomly jump to any point in time in the wave, and it comes pretty in handy. Okay, so that's just a breakdown of how we lay out our data. So let's jump into embedding. So as I mentioned, embedding is essentially embedding Wave in your third-party site. It's really, we wanted to, we were, I guess, inspired by the Maps API, and we wanted to make it just as simple as embedding a map in your website, which is pretty simple. So really all it comes down to is including a single JavaScript file, configuring a couple things such as the look and feel, and basically that's it. So I'm just going to quickly go over a couple of the key methods in our embedding API. Just show this is just very basic JavaScript, very high level, just to show how simple it is. Where the first thing you do is you construct a wave, and you're going to load a wave given some wave ID. How you get that is really up to you, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. Then you just initialize the wave in your frame element, set up your CSS for your UI configuration, and then I have a couple of helper methods, which I'll show in a moment, which allow you to essentially allow the user that is at your site to add a reply to the wave, or to add that wave to his own, or add himself to that wave so that he can follow it in his Google Wave client. No demo yet. Okay. So this is just a quick, very small HTML page that you can see it essentially creates a wave frame, embeds the JavaScript, loads the wave panel, loads the wave, and initializes it. Very simple. That's basically it. A couple more things. We also allow you to set the UI configuration. You may want to set the background color, foreground color, the font, so on. I mean, this is pretty standard. We're also going to extend this to allow for many, many more options in the future. Oh, and that's a demo. So I'm going to jump over to Bloggy, which you saw in the demo. This was configured to look like Blogger, to look like this site with the same code that you just saw. So I can actually come in here as myself and reply to this directly. We'll reply to it. And everything works. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of applications for third-party sites to embed waves. You can imagine, I mean, you may not even be using text when you embed it in your site. In fact, you may only embed a wave in your site to put a gadget on top of it or any other extensions that you build. It's essentially bootstrapping and adding all kinds of functionality to your site fairly easily. So, another thing is that, pretty much everyone should be familiar with Open Social Gadgets. We also allow you to embed waves in Open Social Gadgets. So you can imagine on your High Five account, MySpace account, whichever, you can embed a wave as an application, share it with your friends, and communicate that way as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of layers to this. A lot of additional, Wave allows us a lot of additional features fairly easily. Right. So another thing is that you often want to share these things and configure these things without actually writing any code. So iGoogle allows you to configure waves with simple options and essentially embed a wave in your iGoogle client directly. So you can follow any waves that you're interested in on your iGoogle homepage. And I do not have a demo of that, although I thought I would. So that wraps up embedding. We have many more future plans, such as integration with Orkut, as you can see here, and that's not me. We also want to allow things such as anonymous access, more UI parameters, because you want to be able to configure more of the look and feel of your site, and also supplying your own participants. For example, if you embed a wave on your site, you may want to also just immediately add your friends directly, and so on. So there's a lot more things we want to do here. And again, we're inspired by the Maps API, and we want it to become as rich and as powerful as the Maps API has become. So, gadgets and robots. This is probably my favorite part of the extensions API. Let me just give you a brief breakdown of the difference between robots and gadgets. So I'm going to discuss this by hitting one bullet point at a time in both the robot and the gadget. So a robot is a wave participant. Essentially, you can think of it as a user such as yourself, but it's running as a script and it's automated. But it has all the same access controls that a user does. So it allows you to do some pretty powerful stuff. A gadget, however, is an element that lives in the wave, and it's rendered as a gadget. So it lives inside the wave and is only responsible for its own piece, and I'll talk about that later. Robot runs in the cloud. You can think of it as a server, essentially. Right now we run on App Engine, and we'll also move that out to allow you to run robots on your own servers as well. Gadget, however, runs on the client. As you can see here, this Maps gadget is rendered completely on the client using the standard Maps API. Robots also are able to interact with the entire wave. As I mentioned, they have full access to the wave just as you do. Gadgets, however, interact with the user. They take input from the user and can modify their own state. And furthermore, which I've already mentioned, robots also have a complete view of the wave. They're able to modify everything. I think I've said that 3 times now. Gadgets only have a limited view of the wave and can only modify its own state. But there's an interesting point at which robots can actually interact with gadgets and create very rich applications, which I'll show. So let's talk about gadgets after I take a drink of water. So this is a very high-level overview. Essentially, sorry about the diagram, it's not great. You can think of Alice's wave client as this larger box here, and it contains a gadget as an iframe. And that will construct and modify the wave XML underlying it as that gadget. That XML is synchronously and concurrently controlled and, synchronized with the wave server and communicated to the other clients, Bob and Carl. Now this is done automatically, so all you do is store gadgets. Gadgets will modify the state of the XML and it will be automatically synchronized for you, which will allow you to create pretty interesting applications. So this is just a really quick high overview of some of the methods in the Wave Gadget API. Now I'm not going to talk about all these, but I just want to point out a couple things. For example, Wave get do not highlight. Okay, so you can see Wave Gadget is able to get the participants on the wave, is able to get its own wave state, modify it. Another interesting thing is it's able to get the mode. Now this is very important because the gadget needs to know sometimes if it's in playback mode, view mode, or edit mode. Also, the current time as well. Because we have playback, we want to essentially make sure that we're surfacing the correct time if the gadget is being played back. Another thing is that you can also get the viewer, get the host, which is the person that embedded the wave, and so on. So I'm not going to go into all these. I'd rather just demo a few things, which we're going to get to very soon. So this is just a quick Hello World gadget. It does nothing but embed the Wave API. You can see there's another simple script include, which gives the gadget access to the Wave API if it's living in the Wave. I'm not going to demo this because it doesn't do anything except say Hello Wave, which you can all imagine. So one thing that I know is that to make any gadget interesting, simply add a map to it. That's what I think. So what this does is take a simple Google gadget and adds a map to it directly. Again, this is not very interesting because you can open up a wave, drag around a map, so what? You can do that on a regular website anyway. But what we want to do is actually synchronize the map for free using the Wave API. So there's just a couple extra lines of code here where we're actually using the Wave API. Now, I'm not going to go through all the code here. I mean, that's, in other words, also this is just a breakdown of some of the parts. But you can see here a couple key things. What we want to do is, using the Maps API, very standard drag API. Oops, do not click again. What I'm going to do is, after the user drags, is I'm going to take the current position and store that in the wave. Again, this is completely synchronized and stored as an update frame and sent to all the other clients. So when the state changes, we get a notification and can respond to that. So in this case, when I get a notification that the map position is changed, I simply set the map to that location. So what happens is, if two users are using the map at the same time, when user A moves the map, it synchronizes, sets that position, user B focuses on that location. So let's just show that real quick in Chrome on the Mac. Sorry guys, I didn't have my demos preloaded here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, actually let's make this interesting. So I have no idea what this says. Someone told me it says Google, Beijing. So I'm going to take this bit of text and paste it in. Now, in Wave, this gadget was actually built to take the context of what's being selected and actually search for that when the map is embedded. So I'm going to do that now. Selecting that, click the map, loads, and focuses on what I've essentially sent it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add Adam and see if we can play with this map. So I'm going to center the map somewhere else. Actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and Adam should be seeing this as well.
What would you like me to do? Change to sunlight?
Yes, please. No luck.
It'll come.
Move around a little bit, maybe? Not every demo goes...
It's coming in on this end.
It's interesting. So we're going to move on from that right now while Adam gets set up. Thank you anyway, Adam. But you saw in the demo that it does work, I promise. So let's make this even a little bit more useful and add some avatars. Now, you may have noticed in the methods that I showed you is that you can actually get access to various data about the participants in the wave, including their ID, their name, but interestingly, also their thumbnail URL, which points directly to their profile image. So what this does is stores in the wave not only, well, essentially what it's doing is it's taking each participant and storing their location in the wave, and also storing their thumbnail URL. So let's see what this does. This is a little gadget I built called Where Are You From? And it's got a really bad icon here, but I'm going to insert this, and here I am. So let's add Adam and Dan and hope we have better luck this time. Okay, so there they are. Now I can move my position around and say, well, I'm from Chicago, so I'm going to put myself on Chicago. You guys able to move your position?
Loading.
Dan's loading. Wireless is not so great here today. I have a wave dance. I can't do the wave dance. So
just click somewhere?
yeah, drag your icon. There we go. Very good. Thank you, thank you. Oh. So while Dan's jumping around in the Atlantic here, we're going to switch over. Right. So again, that did not take very much code, and it's fairly interesting. Now, there's a lot of gadgets we've built internally. There's actually a lot of gadgets that I still want to build. Unfortunately, I don't have all the time to do so. But here's just a few of them. So we have chess, as you saw, Sudoku, polls. For example, one late night, we were trying to figure out where we wanted to eat dinner, where we wanted to go. So one engineer, in about an hour, built a pretty interesting application that allowed us all to register where we wanted to eat, tally it up, and display the results. It's pretty interesting. So I also built this one other gadget, which you saw, I believe, in the demo, called RUN. We actually use this a lot on the team for pretty much everything. Hey guys, are you having fun? Again, I'm going to add my friends, Adam and Dan. That's not Dan, that's DLP. And I'm going to add this. This is that's supposed to happen, I promise. So let's try that again. So wave loads pretty fast, right?
Hey guys, do you have fun?
So I'm having a lot of fun up here. I don't know about you. So I'm going to click yes and say, oh yeah. Dan? Dan's not having any fun. That's
Adam's not having any network.
and Adam is not connected. Again, like I mentioned, because the data is being stored in every update frame, I can actually play this back. Dan's now a maybe. Oh, now he's yes. He's having a lot of fun. Dan's making me dizzy. So let's look at playback, and I can see that I started this wave, added the gadget, added my friends, my two friends. Dan selected no, then he selected maybe, then he selected yes. So I can scrub back and forth and watch Dan dance around here. And I get all that for free on top of the Wave XML. So that was gadgets. Let's talk about robots. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd like to be able to say that I can build robots throughout the day. It's a lot of fun. It's a nice, saying that I build robots. It's pretty good. Now, the reason we call them robots is because, well, they're automated, and they look like humans. They're just not humans. But they have all the abilities that the humans do in Wave. So again, a very crude diagram of the robot architecture. What happens is, on Carl's client is communicating with the Wave server, and as events and operations pass through the Wave server, we send these events and operations directly to your robots. And your robot can respond with any operation that a normal client can do. For example, adding a blip, modifying data, and so on. Again, all robots run an app engine today, but eventually that'll be opened up to be able to run on your own servers. So just a quick overview of some of the events that robots are able to respond to. For example, your robot may want to know when a blip is created, when participants are added, when any data is changed, or when a button is clicked. And when that happens, the robot may also want to reply by appending new blips, modifying the data, inserting anything, and so on. So let me talk about my first robot, and this is actually pretty much the first robot that anyone builds, and it's Smiley. You may have noticed that Wave doesn't have any emoticons, so no smileys or anything like that. But it's pretty easy to build using robots. Now, this code is from our Python API, and I chose it because it's nice and condensed, and you don't need much code to do some very powerful things. If this were Java, you'd probably need about 7 or 8 files to do the same thing, unfortunately. So what this does is when the robot starts up, we create a robot named Smiley and say we're only interested in when a blip is submitted. So essentially, whenever a blip gets submitted, we want to receive an event. What happens is when that blip does get submitted, the robot gets the event and can inspect the text in the blip and modify any of the data that's in there. In this case, what we're doing is we're looking for any smileys, or well, happy face or sad face, and we're going to replace that with its Unicode character of that smiley. So this is better demonstrated with a demo, so let's do that. So I'm going to open up my trusty search, open up Smiley. So this is Smiley. I made this icon. He's very happy. And I'm going to say, hey guys, Smiley. Now he should get that. So what happened is he saw that there was the smiley emoticon in the content and simply replace that. So all day long I can come in here, add smileys, frown, happy, so on and so forth, and Smiley will go to work for me. Again, this is completely built in that very small amount of code. Now let's look at something a bit more interesting. This is one of my favorite robots. Again, very small amount of code, but it does a very interesting thing. This is called Completey. Completey uses only one API, and it's the Google Search API. What's happening is Completey tries to complete your sentences for you. So let's say you're not sure of some fact. Let's say I don't know what the capital of China is. Okay, well, Completey can tell me that by using the Search API. So rather than look through this somewhat convoluted code, let's check out a demo. So we have Completey on this wave with me. Again, it's just me and my robot. So let's ask Completey a question. The capital of China is, I'm going to submit that. Completey found the answer by using the Google Search API, Beijing. Let's do another one. The best search engine is, should I submit it? I don't know. Google. Again, very powerful, very small amounts of code. Again, I like to add my friends so that they can play with these kinds of things. This is also very good for facts. Well, I already did a fact. China, Beijing. Google Wave is potentially, I'm going to go in and complete this for Adam. Potentially what? That disruptive.
That's good.
This is fairly good, actually. Oh, Sergey Brin says search is going to get smarter. That's interesting. Anyway, I've probably, once I built this robot, I spent about 2 hours playing with it, so it's pretty interesting. Just some more examples. You saw in the demo, we also have Polly, which is our poll handling robot, which allows you to create a poll, submit it out to your friends, and get live results. Bloggy, which publishes any wave to a blog for you. Buggy, which connects to issue trackers and can synchronize Wave with a third-party service. Searchy, actually, let's do a quick demo of Searchy before we move on. I think you saw this in the actually, we'll do this in the Completey wave. So, well, let's see here. I like pizza. So I'm trying to convince my friends to get some pizza. Oops, can't type and talk at the same time. So I'm just going to search for this because I want it to look appetizing. Ah, there we go. Doesn't that look good? So I can do this all inline using an extension that we called Adam. There you are. Thank you. And so on. Another gadget that was, oh, pizza is, I don't know what that means. So that's searchy. Let's move back. And then there's Tweety, which is pretty popular. And that essentially synchronizes your tweets and your account with Google Wave. And hopefully other people will build robots to synchronize with other services. Let's talk about how these are distributed. That was robots, by the way. Very interesting stuff. Let's talk about extensions and how they're distributed. So we have an extensions API, which is very simple. It consists of two things, hooks and actions. Now, let me just step back and mention that this is actually extending our Google Wave client. And I've actually been using this throughout the demos. I just wasn't mentioning it. So I'm going to actually show that in a minute. Now, some of the hooks are, for example, when I click the New Wave button, when I click a toolbar button, maybe I use a keyboard shortcut, or I add a specific macro. I want to know when that happens, and when that does happen, I want to be able to take an action on it, such as insert a gadget, or add a participant, and again, remember, a participant is also a robot, or create a new wave. So let's actually show an image of this. Again, robots are participants, and gadgets live in the client. So I want to be able to add these directly and allow my users to add these just by clicking buttons and using toolbar buttons as well. This is how our extensions are laid out. It's a simple XML markup format, which allows you to specify where you want to install your tool, where you want to install your extension, certain things such as the image you want to use, and what you want to do. Here, what we're saying is, well, I have this gadget. It's called Where Are You? The description is insert a Where Are You gadget, and I also displayed an image of that gadget. When that button is clicked, what I want to do is take that gadget and insert it directly in the wave. Fairly simple. So let's show that. Well, we have a screenshot, and that was in case I didn't have a demo, but I do have a demo. So I have this extension which I built. Now I can share this with my friends, and they can also install this. So now this is pretty interesting because this button, you see I already have it installed actually. So I'm going to uninstall it just like that. Now, I think this is a pretty novel feature because we can actually install extensions live without ever reloading the client. And you'll see it updated live and in real time. So, for example, if I go into edit mode, you notice that I do not have the world icon up here. However, when I click install, go back to edit mode, and there it is. This all happens in real time. So now I can come in here and crash. I actually was trying out using a gadget, an extension installer, not a good idea. I got greedy. So let's see what happened. All right, so it's still installed. That's pretty good. Come in here, use the world icon, and the gadget appears. All of these extensions were built this way. It just so happens that these other extensions were built first party by us, and you can add your own and share them with your friends. Pretty easy. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. I do want to discuss some of the future plans that we have. One missing part is how to get access to your own data outside. We want to open that up completely. You should be allowed to get access to all of your waves, all of your data from your external server. And we're going to do that using our GDD APIs with OAuth support. Also, we want to allow your robots to be authenticated against our servers so that any time your robots can send updates to our servers and modify waves on your behalf. Now, in line with this awesome name that we have of robots, we also have a new API coming online, which is Zombie API. Now, that doesn't mean too much, but essentially what it is are client-side robots that do not run on the server. Instead, it's completely JavaScript. And that actually has a number of interesting use cases, such as syntax highlighting and so on. We want you to be able to build editors, your favorite Python editor, your favorite Java editor, so on, even gadget editor, directly in Wave, and allow your friends to collaborate with you over code. So, and also share them. So it's some pretty interesting stuff. This image I put together about 5 minutes before my talk, which are some of the robots we built. And of course, the one on top is the one that you are yet to build. And he is the strongest. So that's essentially all I have for you. I just want to remind you to check out code.google.com, APIs, or /APIs/wave to learn more. We have all of our APIs there, all of our code, lots of documentation. You can spend hours reading it. And just get ready for when we do roll out accounts to you. And we look forward to seeing some of the gadgets that you guys build. That's it. So it looks like I have some time left. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I'd love to take some. Anybody? Perhaps Dan has a question.
My question is, does anybody else have any questions?
Right. Well, hopefully you're all thinking about some cool robots you want to build. Again, I have a laundry list, very long list of things that I do want to build. I just don't have the time. So I'm looking to all you guys to do that.
He's too busy building more APIs for everybody else to use.
But use Python, not Java. Thank you.